2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, general law, chapter 30A, section 18, and the governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place. This meeting of the Southport Advisory Committee will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and or parties with a right and a requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the Town of Southborough's website at www.southboroughtown.com. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to watch or participate in the meeting may do so in the following manner by finding the meeting at www.southboroughtown.com/remote meetings. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on Southborough's website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. All right, guys, let's get going here. So if it's okay with everybody, I haven't looked at Claire's minutes at all, and we've got several to approve. So we can do one of two things. If there's enough people that have reviewed them, we can approve them. If not, we can do that at 9 o'clock on Saturday. So what is your preference? Andrew, AP?
I mean, I reviewed them and didn't see much. One little thing. Jason, did you have any major edits?
I didn't, and I think it's just going to be very difficult to do in the middle of a field.
Yeah.
But obviously I don't want to rush if someone hasn't had a chance to look at them.
Okay, that's a good point. I keep thinking we're going to be inside. Of course, we're not at all. So it's a good point. We are going to have tables, by the way. I requested tables. We're going to have tables this time. Tim is
bring
okay.
a couple umbrellas for us.
Yeah, that would be great. Golf size umbrellas, please. Big ones. Tim, are you okay with approving minutes tonight?
Yes. Are we talking about specific edits now?
Yeah. So I'm just going to be quiet because I really haven't read them and see what you guys want Claire to do. So Claire, are you ready?
I am.
The first thing we need to do is approve the joint session with the Board of Selectmen on the 13th, where we were going to use Katie Berry's minutes for the part that we were in joint session. And I'm not sure that's been totally communicated. So Claire, are those ready?
Those were the ones that were sent out last week. I actually did them and I sent them to Katie and she put them into the Board of Selectmen meeting.
All right, so has everybody read the, because we've already approved the 413 second part, correct? Clear?
Okay.
I don't think we did.
Hold on a second.
Okay.
There were two sessions.
That's right.
So that was the one where you guys first met on April 13th. You approved those. No?
No. So we haven't approved, I'm positive, the joint session with the BOS on 413.
No, that was the second one, and that was the one that I sent out.
And she hasn't
Let me make this clear. You're confusing me. Okay, so 413, we met first with the Board of Selectmen, then we met separately. Okay, last time we did it in reverse. So the 413 meeting, so has everybody read the 413 joint session minutes with the Board of Selectmen? Okay, has anybody read them? So AP, have you read those minutes?
I don't know. Hold on, let me look back and see.
Well, you found them at last meeting and you sent them to us. As we
Yeah, I have the ones the selectmen had. If that's all we're ratifying, I'm fine with that. Yeah.
Okay, and Claire said she actually wrote them. So even though you got them.
Yeah, and I actually, give me a second and I'll go back and find out when I sent them out to everybody.
Okay, it doesn't matter. Let's keep going. It doesn't matter when you send them out as long as you did. It sounds like, okay, so AP, have you read those minutes from April 13th, the joint session?
No, I don't have any edits, but I should probably double check.
Have you read them?
I read them when we looked at them weeks ago, but I wasn't
We have not looked at the April 13th joint minutes because they weren't ready last meeting.
Correct.
I
I sent them out as a draft. I didn't read
You
them
did
in
at that
the
meeting.
detail.
So you found them that night, you sent them out. So I'm just trying to find out, have enough people read these? We can approve these. So have you read them?
I have not read them enough that I feel confident
Okay,
approving
Jason,
them,
have
unless
you read
somebody
them?
else has.
I have read the ones that Andrew circulated during the meeting last time, which
Okay,
were the
Tim, have you read
BOS
those?
meeting. Yes.
Okay,
That's correct.
okay. So there's only one person. Judy, have you read those?
No, but I left that when we went to the joint meeting, I thought, oh God, not more of this. And I
Okay,
left.
I'm talking about the joint meeting that we were all at. You were there. Okay.
No, I
so
left. I didn't
so-
stay.
The choice with this set of minutes is to review them or to approve them with only Jason having read them. If that's what you want to do,
I don't think that's a good idea.
I don't either, but I'm
Yeah.
trying to let you say it, okay? All right, so we're not going to approve the 413 joint session. Now, what about the 413 separate session? Those we've had for a while.
Those we approved that other meeting.
And that's what I thought too, but I thought somebody
Correct.
said we didn't. Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah,
All right,
yeah, sorry, I confused the matter. There was a
you
to-do
did.
coming out of the meeting for me to edit one paragraph, which
Okay.
I submitted that to Claire, so that should now go to the clerk.
And I have such faith in what you say, Jason, you had confused me because I knew it. Okay, so those are out. So that one's done. Now let's go on to 420, which was the quick 30-minute meeting. We have not approved those, correct, Claire?
Yes.
Yes, correct. We have not approved.
No, I'm sorry. Those
Approve those
were
already.
approved.
Okay, so we've approved 420.
Open the May 10th, 2021 meeting minutes that were sent out yesterday in draft. They list out what we did at the last meeting that I think would be helpful.
Okay, so can, Claire, you look at your draft minutes from 510,
Yes.
tells us what we approved and tell us what we approved.
Ooh,
I'll read.
Sorry.
There was a motion at the last meeting that says JB moved to approve the meeting minutes from the 420 advisory meeting as written. And we voted
Okay.
502.
Okay, so that one's done. Now, Jason, go to the next one, which would be 5-5.
JB moved to approve the meeting minutes from the 5-5 advisory meeting with the changes discussed. Seconded and approved 7-0.
All right, so we're in better shape than I thought. Okay, now, so all we really got approved then is 510, which was the separate meeting at first, and then the joint session with BOS, and then get the 413 initial meeting with BOS approved. Okay, so we're going to do the first one later because we don't have enough people read that one. Have enough people read the 510 draft minutes to approve those tonight?
I have.
Yeah, I think we can.
Okay, good. All right. So, okay. So AP, do you have any edits to 510?
Only to the 530 version, Claire. Line 80, talking about the Board of Health budget. Two funding sources. It was, you had it listed as the town and shared services grant. It's the town and the CARES Act.
okay, thank you.
Okay. Is that it, Andrew?
That's all I had.
Okay, Jason?
The only thing I had was I left at 6:55 approximately. Like I just left during the South Union discussion, and then I joined back in when we went to the BOS.
Okay. You got that clear?
I do.
Okay. Anything else, Jason?
No, well, I guess Claire, just make sure when you update line 123, I wasn't there, so there's no way I could have voted to adjourn. When you moved to BOS, I joined you back in at the BOS like 5 minutes into their meeting.
Okay, thank you. My
So
bad.
he won't count it all in that vote. Judy, anything on those minutes from 510?
No.
Judy say no. Tim?
Something just minor. After line 112, I'd like just a very short sentence that I requested that the total cost of ownership be considered for such a sale.
Okay. All right. AP, you want to make a motion for the 510 minutes to be approved with the revisions?
Sorry, go ahead, Claire.
I'm sorry. this is for the first meeting that you had on 5/10.
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
And we have no edits on the other
I,
one.
I apologize because I didn't get the second set of minutes from 5/10 where you guys met with the Board of Selectmen until it was sent out mid to late afternoon today. So probably you haven't, and what I put in the note was you probably don't have enough time to review it for tonight's meeting. And
Okay.
maybe what you want to do is hold it until Saturday when you have that agenda item.
Okay.
I mean, I read that. I thought it was fine. And then-
Andrew, so these guys are fast, Claire. Okay, Jason, did you read the second part of 5/10?
Yeah.
You say
Okay.
yes. Okay.
So-
Tim?
So I'm going to move both. So,
I don't see any edits.
Okay, so we're moving them both, Claire.
okay. So I move that we accept the edits for May 10th from the 5:30 and 7 p.m. meeting as edited previously.
Second.
Tim seconded. Okay, roll call vote. Judy?
I have to abstain. I didn't read them.
Cook is going to approve. So yay. Jason?
Aye.
AP?
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
Okay, so Claire, you got 4-0-1 to approve the 5/10 meeting minutes, both parts. So we're in great shape. We only have to do the 4/13 BOS ones. So we can do that sitting on our chairs and our tables. On Saturday, so when it's not pouring down raining. So I apologize. So just quickly, everybody has their own personal problems, but in my family, we've been waiting for a double lung transplant for 2 years, and it finally happened Thursday night. So I had to rush to Tennessee.
Wow.
So that's where I've been since then. So anyway, I am a little discombobulated. Okay, let's keep going here. Water department budget. So we need to vote on tonight, and I hopefully close the loop on this one. So one advantage of having to go on that plane quick, I had a lot of time to read things that I had printed before I left. So I have now read a lot about how enterprise funds work accounting-wise. And long story short, there's one sentence the message tells you they just made it come home for me. It says, enterprise funds basically use the same accounting principles as for-profit businesses. So it's GAAP and not GASB. So therefore, that's why they do have retained earnings, which Karen keeps using when she talks to us. I'd asked Brian Valentine about it. I said, does she really mean free cash? And he said, yes. Well, she really does. She means retained earnings. So they do have a different set of accounting principles that they abide by in enterprise funds. So therefore, there is retained earnings, which of course is earnings not spent, right? It carries over from year to year and it's a cumulative number. And the reason it's important is because if you go back and look at the water study done by the outside consultant, he has numbers for fiscal year 22 that are in some cases significantly wrong. And the biggest difference is the cost of the water to be bought for fiscal year 22. The actual cost that Karen's got in her budget is $200,000 more than what he has. So her plan is as follows. They raised the water rates 5% in March with the Board of Selectmen vote. They've got similar raises planned for the next few years. And what they're doing to keep it down to 5%, which to me still sounds like a lot, is they're going to start eating up some of the retained earnings. So they're basically going to use that to offset some of the deficits that they're expecting to occur because of this increase in the cost of water. So they're trying to mitigate over the next few years the increased cost. Now, if we get back to normal business in a year or so, Boston comes back, people are back in the offices using water, it may go down again. But anyway, that's her plan, is to use retained earnings to offset some of the projected deficits in that. It's still a 24% year-over-year increase in her budget, but at least it makes a little bit more sense now as far as where she's going. Plus, it was a comfort to me that she does use this consultant to come in and help her set water rates. They don't use them every year, but they have used the same firm for a few years. So anyway, I feel better about at least that budget itself, which we have not spent a whole lot of time on. I wish Mr. Rooney was here because he was the one that was concerned we hadn't done enough. But at this point, I feel okay about it. I think AP feels okay about it. but we should watch it and just make sure that we really do understand what's going on there. Anybody have any comments to that?
It would be good to get, nothing for town meeting, but I think it would be good to have Karen come in the fall, right? Before budget season hits, and we'll know how the summer looks at that point too, right? Obviously, it's been pretty warm, pretty early here, and I know
Yeah.
we keep hearing the word drought, so it's always
Yeah.
what worries me with this sort of stuff.
Yeah. Okay, so Andrew, can you pull up the budget?
Sure. I would say too, Kathy, we should probably have Karen earlier, especially to talk about the water fund with the ARPA or whatever it's called, funds that are able to be used for water projects. So, or Jason,
So
capital.
everybody, Andrew P. and Sam Stivers both have done, and probably Jason too, done some deep dives into the American Rescue Plan and believe that there is significant funds available to Southborough to do some water improvement projects. So we want to make sure that we do that. That's on our list. When we meet on June the 9th, we're going to plan our summer, and that's definitely at the top of the list to make sure that we've got a more formal process to ensure that we're getting what we're entitled to get as far as all these bills and all this money that's hanging up. All right. Okay. So Andrew, can you make a motion to approve the water fund budget, which is, I believe, Article 8?
Is it in the spreadsheet?
I've got the actual form in front of me, so I can see what it is. Okay, so the amount, I'll just make a motion. Okay, so I make a motion to approve the fiscal year 2022 water enterprise fund budget of $2,904,951.
Second.
Okay, so AP seconded. Any further discussion of the water enterprise fund budget for fiscal year 22? Okay, roll call vote. Judy?
Aye.
Cook is aye. Jason?
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
And AP?
Aye.
Okay, so Claire, that's 5-0. So we don't have but one Andrew on our own committee anymore. Have to worry about the two Andrews.
We'll have to recruit another one.
Okay, so there's that one. Now let's talk about, let's see, revolving funds. So again, I've done a lot of work on revolving funds because I have time to read and I see you. And I talked to Carla many times, and I've talked to Brian one time with Carla in the room too. So long story short, we've got 10 revolving funds. The numbers that are in Article 14, which basically say this is the max expenditures from those funds. The money comes in. So remember, revolving funds are outside the budget. You don't see the expenses in our town budget. They're off to the side doing their own thing. They collect revenue and then they spend money out of that fund. State law does say you've got to set a town meeting a max amount that can come out of that revolving fund without further approval from Board of Selectmen and your town finance committee, which is us. So I can say this, we've never, advisory, as long as I can remember, has never approved an expenditure from the revolving fund. So that's what started getting me thinking. I thought, well, remember all the stuff that, for example, rec is by far the biggest, right? The other ones are just peanuts for the most part. Some of them don't even have any activity. So this is focused on rec for a moment. You may remember rec has spent money over the past few years, other than just on funding the people who run the RAP programs and the camp programs. They've bought a couple of vehicles. They have paid for some overruns on projects. And so I kept saying, Carla, where does this number come from, this $400,000? And she was very honest. She says, I don't know. This is what Heidi had. So they don't really know where these numbers are coming from. And they've agreed that this is on their list for the summer too, to delve into this and tighten this up, because the purpose of setting the max is to put some control over how the money gets spent. If you don't have that, then how do you know what the body that controls the funds is doing with it? So there's more work to be done on it. And so the numbers in this article are slightly arbitrary. I think what Heidi did is went back and looked at what they spent during a year, and just use that number and round it up. Because rec used to have a real exact number in this article. It used to be like 367,201. And now they've rounded up to 400. So I think Heidi went back and looked at what she thought they should spend just on normal stuff, paying the people who run the programs, et cetera, and nothing else. And that's why she said it at that. So there's more work to be done. But this is probably about as far as we can take it for town meeting. So anybody want to comment on what I said, add anything to it? Because I am going to ask us to vote on it tonight.
I guess speaking from a capital perspective, I don't really think of revolving funds as a mechanism for capital expenditures, but I think we've cured that with the policy that the BOS adopted. Just a thought, Kathy, is it's a little concerning. I mean, I've never voted on this articles. I don't know if you've ever talked about it at any of the advisory meetings in the past, but we do have a fall town meeting, right?
Yep.
So I would say if we're moving forward with these numbers, especially the $400,000 amount, I think, we do have a chance to reset it come the fall if there's good reason. The other way you could look at it is you could lower it now to, I'll just throw out a number, 200, to get them through half the year and adjust it once you actually know what the number should be. But I was thinking about that as you were talking. I just think it's unfair to potentially do that without them here to comment on it. And it's clear that no one has looked at it. I guess my concern is that no one really has looked at this, both from an accounting perspective, but also a department perspective, clearly either at all or in a very long time. So regardless of where we go tonight, I think this absolutely has to be a summer action with a definitive number for the fall, if an adjustment's required.
So Jason, I like the second thing you said, which is lower it. And then if we need to raise it for a justified reason, come back in the fall and do that. I mean, just bearing in mind that these aren't hard limits. These are, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but these are limits that are without approval, right? If they need to spend a huge chunk of money, they should be going to the selectmen to get approval.
Yep.
At minimum.
And they can do capital stuff, Jason. Forget what has been done now as far as the capital policy. You can make capital expenditures out of revolving fund. That is permissible. I agree. We don't want it to happen. I mean, there was a time that the Rec Commission intended to try to build up the revolving fund to a point they could fund a community center. And of course, that's clearly inappropriate, right? That's not going to happen. So Tim, if we were to, we'd have to amend this at town meeting though to do it. We could, but we can say not support and then propose an amendment. I'm not sure it's worth it. I think it might engender a whole lot of discussion that will be kind of over people's heads as far as what we're talking about. So I'm not sure we should do that. But I absolutely agree that we need to get our arms around these, understand, especially if we've got a few that aren't being used, let's get rid of them and bring the money back into the town coffers, whatever's sitting in them. So I do agree totally that we need to look at this, understand it, and understand that we do need to set an amount that's appropriate to keep control over how things get spent. So
Yeah.
we really do understand it.
Yeah, when you say 400,000, you're basically saying, don't look at my account, let me do what I want.
Yeah. So
I mean, they still need to get the Rec Commission to approve the spends, right?
yeah, that's who approves it. Andrew, so the Rec Commission decides how, and then for example, the RAP programs, I'm sure they just sign invoices and send them to Carla to pay, right? But I said to Carla, are you auditing this number to make sure they don't go over the max? And she said, yes, that it is being checked. But, Carla's only been here, a very short time. So I don't think she's had much of a chance to do that, but she does think it's been done. So, Tim, I'm with you as far as wanting to control this. I was not sure doing this at town meeting this time, this late date, wouldn't cause more problems than it's worth. Or something we have no idea we're going to do this. Mark Purple has no idea we're going to do this. Brian Valentine does. So I think it would surprise everybody for sure. And it'd be up to us then to get up and try to explain to the audience what revolving funds are for. So I don't think it is a discussion that we probably should do at this Saturday's town meeting.
I agree.
Yeah, I'd agree with you, Kathy. I mean, one, I think the other revolving funds that kind of have surpluses end up giving money back to the town. You know, whether that be the ambulance fund or other
Well, that's
places.
not a
So,
revolving fund, that's different. So that's a
Revolving.
receipts restricted fund. So you've got enterprise funds, which is water. You've got revolving funds, which are these 10, which are 9 small ones, and then rec, and then you've got the ambulance fund. So that's different. So they're all 3 different animals as far as what you do with them.
um, I also think, Kathy, like I know Brian and Carla go to BOS every quarter and do an overview of the finances, like they just did at the last BOS meeting.
Yeah.
I'd like to see them do the same for advisory, and I'd like to see them. They don't, in the presentation they do, I don't think they cover revolving funds, but I think that would be good to include that. They do a quarterly review.
So Tim, does that satisfy you that we really will make an effort to deal with this very soon after we get started on our summer work?
Honestly, no,
No?
especially considering Rec's history of malfeasance in this area.
Well, we're going to meet before this fiscal year even ends. We're going to meet on June 9th and June 23rd. So we've got a chance to jump on this really quick. And I mean, you've got, the rec department's turned over completely, right, since a few years ago. So I don't know if I want to go as far as what you said. So anyway, I still think it's going to be a big issue if we try to amend this at town meeting and have to get up and explain why. And don't know, I mean, especially, and then to basically not give the rec commission a chance to be ready to respond. I mean, this is Wednesday night before Saturday. So I don't think it's fair to them either to do this at the last minute.
Kathy, I think there's a middle ground, because if we were talking about this in January, I would be making a motion now to bring a number lower than 400.
Yeah.
But I do believe in process, and rec wasn't given notice to come tonight, for example, or whenever I know we raised it in the past. I think this discussion will be captured in the minutes for sure, hopefully, Claire. We need to put rec on notice that we're going to be scrutinizing that 400 and likely recommending a different number. I don't know what the number is, right? Let's do the due diligence, but we may bring a number that's different than 400 to a fall town meeting, which we know the Board of Selectmen have agreed to do. And I think, to Andrew's point, we should monitor the expenses very closely. Remember the playground that came out of there last year? That's kind of what led to some of the capital policy things getting streamlined. So I do think there is a way to monitor it to make sure that it's up to snuff, but allow them the time to articulate why that's the right number, as opposed to just throwing a nice round number out there. And also having a broader conversation of, similar to what we did when the schools were here, of whether these funds really should just be swept back into the general fund every year, as opposed to being available for certain departments, as opposed to other departments that don't have the ability to generate revenue.
Well, see, Jason, I think that's the rub, is that the main purpose of, I'd say there's 2 purposes of revolving fund. And one has never done a lot for me, which is you match your income expenses like the county will actually do. But the other one is when you've got a revenue generating activity that bounces up and down, it's hard to budget for it. So if you throw it into a revolving fund, you don't have to worry about your budget going up, going down, and what the impact of it. So it kind of keeps it on the side. So if all we want them to do is, maximize the fees that they collect on the programs they offer, pay the direct expenses for those programs out of that, and then whatever is left over, hopefully that there is something, that piece of it really should be turned back to the town to decide what to do with. To me, that's your fundamental question. I don't know what you think, Tim, but I've always thought that we should have more control over the profit that department generates, and use it for the benefit of the entire town, not just for one group. We also talked about, so this discussion has been had for many years.
And I would agree with you, Kathy.
So what we tried to do a couple years ago and did not get much support is to say, well, we also want the cost of the rec department employees, the 2 employees, to be run through there. And told first, no, you can't do that. You guys out, you can't do the whole thing. You can only do, you got to do all or nothing. It can't be part of salary. It turns out it can be part of salary. You just have to make it a fully loaded part of salary. It's going to include benefits. So you can do that. And that would suck some of it up too. So to me, that's the fundamental question is, do we believe the rec commission should have control over the profit generated by those programs, or should that be turned back to the town? And then that's what we can talk about in June, and then decide where to go from there.
So I'm going to make two motions to advance this. My first motion is going to be that the advisory committee authorize the chair to request a meeting with the Recreation Commission, town accountant, finance director in the Recreation Department for purposes of further vetting and assessment of the Recreation Department revolving fund, with the intent to bring a revised number to fall town meeting if necessary.
Second.
Okay, Andrew Pfaff, seconded, Claire. Okay, any further discussion of Jason's motion? That's one of two. Okay, so roll call vote on that motion. Judy?
Aye.
Cook is aye. Jason?
Aye.
AP?
Aye.
Tim?
You're on mute, Tim.
Sorry. Aye.
So 5-0 on that, Claire. Okay, Jason, next one.
Then I will move that the advisory committee support Article 14 as written in the warrant.
Second.
Second.
Andrew seconded. Any further discussion of Article 14, which is the max expenditures from the 10 town revolving funds? Okay. Judy?
Aye.
Cook is aye. Jason?
Aye.
AP?
Aye.
Tim?
Nay.
Okay, so Claire, that's 4-1-0.
But I agree with your plan, and I will not stand up to make an amendment myself.
Okay, and I hear you, Tim, and I'm with you. I just don't think that's the way to do it.
No, I just don't want to send a unanimous
Okay,
vote of
that's fine.
support.
And I think that's good. I think that's good too. I wish that we had the whiteboard up so people could see our votes and ask why there's a dissent. Okay, that's 14. Now we get to vote again on the Board of Health budget. So by way of catching everybody up, Chelsea Malinowski was elected to the Board of Health on the 11th. She replaced the gentleman that was on it, Dan. And so there's now Chelsea and Mary Lou Woodford and Nancy Seckel on the board. So they met the next morning. I think I'm right on the dates, Wednesday morning afterwards. And they have revoted their budget for fiscal year 22. And they agreed in that revote to keep the admin in the same split as fiscal year 21. That is 24 hours in their department and 16 hours in Paul Sabelli's department. They did vote to move her to step 5, which is up 1 step. So she did move up to that, and they modified the budget to reflect that. So they voted on that budget, and it's 202,692, I believe. I sent it to you this afternoon.
Yeah,
Selectmen voted last night to approve it, so they've approved it. So I'm asking everybody to consider approving that budget so that we go to town meeting in lockstep as far as the budget. Now, to get there, the Board of Health is going to have to amend the budget town meeting, and I think they've got that teed up. Now, as part of the agreement on Wednesday, the 12th, to do this, I agreed to recommend that advisory supports an increase in the reserve fund for fiscal year 22 by $10,000 to make sure there's enough money if Jason, our new IT director, comes back and says that the solution to HIPAA is to buy a $10,000 scanner. We've added $10,000 to the reserve fund to be able to fund that if that were to be his recommendation. So that was part. So this was the deal that was, for lack of a better word, cut with BOH on the 12th. So Board of Selectmen have also voted last night to support the increase in the reserve fund. So we need to make 2 votes tonight, or take 2 votes. We need to vote on the revised Board of Health budget to the 202,692, and increasing the reserve fund for fiscal year 22 from 180,000 to 190,000. So these are connected, these two votes.
Is there any reason we can't move them as one?
No, since somebody doesn't want to do it that way.
So Kathy, so basically the Board of Health, the selectmen, and if we vote to support this, would all support. Who's going to actually make the amendment? The Board of Health or the selectmen
Yes.
or us?
Nope, Board of Health. So Chelsea Malinowski is going to make the amendment. And I said, go ahead and make the reserve one too. So we don't have, different people hollering out. Oh, so, the way it works is the moderator starts reading the budget numbers and people yell out hold, right? The budget. So when we get to the two budgets here, Chelsea's going to say hold. And then I'm not sure who's going to get up and explain. Maybe she is. So we've got to talk about that as far as who explains it. So someone's got to then get up and explain why they are holding those two budgets and what they are proposing to do.
All right. So I'm going to make a motion. I move that the advisory committee supports budget 132 for the reserve fund in the amount of $190,000 for fiscal year 22. And in addition, we vote to support budget 512 for the Board of Health for fiscal year 22 and the amount of $202,692.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Judy seconded. Any further discussion of the motion to approve those two revised budgets? Okay. Judy.
Budge, aye.
Cook is aye. Tim?
Aye.
Jason?
Aye.
AP?
Aye.
5-0. So as far as time spent per dollar of budget, I think that Board of Health between two wins that prize for like the last 20 years. But anyway, it's done. Okay, so there's that one. So Tim, you want to handle the next one? This is the discussion that was had at the Personnel Board recently about the staffing for the IT department. We got, just so you know how it's happened, we got a email, or Tim got an email from Tim Litt, who I guess listened to the meeting and was concerned about the tenor of that meeting and what was said specifically. It was quite contradictory to what we have been proposing.
Kathy, what do you think about bringing Tim into the panelist
Is he
side
here?
of things? He
Is he
is.
here? Yeah, okay, so let's bring him in.
Hello,
Hi, Tim.
Good evening.
evening.
So Tim, you want to, I take it you attended that meeting?
Yes.
So you want to update us on what transpired?
Well, so the short form is that Mark Purple, in his personnel director role, went to the personnel board and announced that there was a plan that he and Jason had come up with to use the money that everyone has been fighting for a second IT position for help desk support and system, perhaps a part-time system manager. Exactly how that works, I don't understand, given the full-time position policies and all that stuff. And I thought that was not consistent with what the MTC has been arguing for, what I've been arguing for since before the MTC, and what you guys have been arguing for the past couple of years. Following that, for the public packet for last night's Board of Selectmen meeting contained the memo from Jason, which spelled this out in detail. So I brought that to Tim's attention because he's been the lead person on advisory about this, and also to Matt Probst because the MTC has also been pushing this bit of spaghetti uphill. I know the MTC is planning on talking about it tomorrow, and I know that Matt has had a conversation with Jason saying, gee, it would be nice if we weren't surprised by these things. So that's sort of the quick summary of where things are. as I understand it. I mean, but basically, you know, what has me upset is that everyone said the purpose for going out on a limb and increasing full-time staff was to make sure that, number one, we didn't have the problem we had with Tom, you know, hit by a bus or leaves for something else, and we don't have an equivalent person lined up. Some people call it redundancy. I prefer to call it resiliency because redundancy has another connotation. And then you had also worked to make sure that there was additional consulting money to take care of specialty consulting for things like cyber, which, you know, Tim and I have both been, you know, pushing on for some time. So the notion that somehow the full-time funds were going to be pushed to a help desk person with then some part-time system admin did not seem consistent with all the energy that went into having, you know, full-time staff to solve the key man problem. That's what raised my alarm bells.
There does seem,
So-
go ahead,
Go ahead,
Kathy.
Tim. No, you
No,
go ahead.
There does seem to be an ongoing failure to understand the translation is not happening. You know, the message that we're sending, and I don't know at what level it's breaking down, but we're sending a clear message. MTC is sending a very clear message. I don't know if the selectmen are not receiving it, or I don't know if they are receiving it, but Mark is not receiving it. I don't know where the breakdown is happening. But a part-time resource or a junior resource it's going to help Jason take vacation or be sick. It's not going to solve the problems that we've had this past year, and certainly it's not going to help us make a dent in this in the cybersecurity and in HIPAA space.
In terms
So
of where things, I'm sorry.
No, it's all right. Go ahead.
I was going to say, in terms of where things break down, my experience with Mark, and this goes back to, you know, before there was an MTC, has been that he doesn't have, you know, the background to understand the IT space, much less the whole technology space. I suspect what's happening is Jason went to him because, you know, he reports to Mark and said, you know, kind of, here's my proposal. And, you know, somehow, you know, the messages that the rest of us have been delivering didn't find their way to Jason.
Yeah,
or he just feels that he needs, you know, the junior help, and he may be like where Tom was. You know, I don't want competition in my department. I want help.
Could be. Tom certainly was resistant to hire anything but a junior person. I don't know why. All I know is that the problem that existed in the past continues to exist, and I'm not certain what our step forward would be. Perhaps we need to talk to Matt.
I think so. And look what's happened since the last time we talked about this. I mean, seriously. So they're going to meet tomorrow night, Tim Litt?
Yes, it is on the agenda for tomorrow night, and I know that Matt and I have exchanged a little bit of mail, so I know that it will have some serious discussion.
I mean,
So since we believe that we should rely heavily on MTC, why don't we see what happens tomorrow night and then take it back up?
That makes sense to me.
Yeah, Tim, you might want to attend the MTC meeting just so you get it firsthand.
What time
if
is
you
it?
have the time.
Does anybody know the time?
Yes, it is 7 o'clock tomorrow.
Okay.
I don't remember exactly where it is on the agenda, but it's not first.
yeah, I mean, I would agree with Tim and Tim. I mean, it's one thing if we hire a senior second in command, you know, somebody that's part of the succession plan of Jay, and they're doing help desk work.
Right.
Than it is to hire a help desk worker and then, you know, expect them to fill that role.
Right.
So,
Does anyone expect Jason to go to this meeting tomorrow night? Is he invited?
I would expect him to go. He's supposed to be an ex officio member of the committee, but the selectmen have held off on that for peculiar reasons. So he'll be there. He was there the last time this was discussed, and I made the point then. I mean, the reason really for coming back to you is, you took a look at the policy you have about, adding full-time people, and you were convinced of the urgency based on a certain use of this funding. And the direction for that is not consistent with what you approved. I didn't think
Okay.
that should come as a surprise after they made a hire and it was hard to change.
Okay, so our plan is to see what MTC says tomorrow night and go from there. Okay.
Yeah, I think you have to let, I don't know what's going on, but, and I'm not going to sit here and try to theorize on things. I think you need to get all these parties in the same room, same Zoom, whatever you want to call it, and let them explain the rationale. I mean, I wouldn't put my name on a memo if I didn't believe something I was putting forward. So I think these people should get a chance to explain themselves of the pros and cons and go from there. I just don't think that that's happened yet.
Okay, Tim Martell, is that okay with you?
It is.
All right, so yeah, it would be very helpful if you could go tomorrow night. I'll listen to and see what they say. All right, thanks, Tim. Lit.
Thank you, Tim.
All right, well, okay, so Jason is up next. So Jason's going to update us on, remember, we've had a lot of discussions this past year on accrued sick and vacation time. To tee this up for Jason, we've had issues with how it was reported, who was doing the recording, et cetera. And we've also had issues with the actual policy itself. So Jason, you want to take it from here?
Sure. So Betsy Rosenblum, chair of the personnel board, reached out to me in advance of their May meeting. She, as you all remember, we kind of sent a letter to them. They took it up in one of either November or December, and had asked for some legal advice from town's labor council about what they can and can't do, so that they could inform any next steps that they may or may not take. It took them about 4 months to get the legal opinion back. I don't have any explanation for that, but that's why this kind of has not had any update in a long time. You all have a copy of the opinion, and there was one statement that stood out to me in there was Attorney Norris had mentioned that the town's policy, especially on vacation accrual and the amount that you can accrue, was very consistent in most manners in terms of how much you can carry over with other towns, but it cited no such examples. And every personnel plan or every town has a different word for it. But everyone I've looked at is very different than down in South Bros. So I know Betsy went back to the attorney to ask what the basis was for his conclusion, because at least I wasn't seeing that. But what Betsy has asked for, in addition to that, is her board's going to convene on this matter in June. June 9th, I believe, is their next meeting. And she's invited advisory to join, or a representative from advisory. I know the committee had previously appointed me to kind of liaise on this matter. I think there was general consensus of let personnel board do their diligence, and then we'll kind of weigh in on the back end of anything that would be brought forward to town meetings. So I was planning to attend, but I also just wanted to make sure membership here was aware that this conversation is restarting. Personally, my only recommendation is going to be that they do a study and figure out what our comparable towns are that they use for compensation and everything else, and come back and say, yeah, we are really in line, or we're not. There's also some recommendations around the sick leave policy as well. But my personal opinion is that there is some discretion that they will have based on the data they're able to find. And I want to let them be able to do what they're really good at, is, look at other towns' data, figure out whether that town's data fits into ours or should be different, and what the reasons are or aren't, and come back with a proposal. So that's really where we're at. I'm happy to answer questions, but I told Betsy, given that she invited the committee, that I would at least come back here and let everyone know in case there was anyone else that had any sort of interest in this topic.
Jason, what day did you say that meeting is?
It is Wednesday, June 9th, and I believe they usually meet at noontime.
Because we're meeting that night. I just want to make sure we don't. We don't.
Yeah, and unless I know in the Zoom environment, they've been meeting around lunchtime.
So I just want to make a comment to the overall issue here. This is one I am not as concerned as I usually am with what other towns do. You know, there's been situations where in the past, you know, we said, well, we really wish we could get the schools, you know, to do different things. And the answer is, you're not going to get Little Southborough to drive the state union decisions. Try, but you won't. But in this case, I just think that maybe we should be thinking a little bit out of the box and not necessarily be as concerned about what other towns are doing. If you separate the two, vacation, right? Why do you have vacation? You want people to take vacations. They need to take vacations. It's good for people to take vacations. So you don't want people to carry over 10 years worth of vacations. I forget what we're carrying over now, but you want to encourage people to take their vacation. That's what a vacation's for. Sick time, you want people to have time to be sick, to go to doctors, take kids to doctors, whatever. So the idea that, you know, you take, you know, 10 years worth of accrued sick time when you leave or whatever the number is, I think makes no sense whatsoever. Either you take it or you lose it. You take it when you need it. It's there for that. But the idea that people, you know, will try really hard to stockpile that so that there is a big check in the day just makes no sense to me. So I think both policies need serious thought, and it sounds like that's what we're doing. So I think it's good.
I agree. And the only reason I'm suggesting other towns is I'm fairly confident when they go look at other towns, they're going to realize that we're out on an island and out on the wrong island.
Okay, so that would be helpful. So good. Because, you know, in the for-profit world, I'm by far, well, I guess maybe Judy and I, by far the oldest here. You used to be able to carry over a lot of vacation too, but then they stopped that a long time ago for that reason. And you've never carried over a whole lot of sick time in the for-profit world. So it just, neither one make a whole lot of sense to me as far as what the purpose of having those benefits are. You want people, if they're sick, stay home. You don't want to drag themselves in just because they don't want to use a sick day.
So two comments I had, Jason, and I don't know if you can bring this up at the personnel board, is if we are going to accrue vacation, I think we should accrue it at the rate at which they've earned it. Not accrue hours, but accrue the dollars. Because the
So
problem
you wanted
is,
to accrue, okay, so in other
because
words,
if
when
you're
they get
here for
paid
30
out,
years, right, and your pay 30 years ago was $5 an hour, right, and you accrued 10 hours, so $50 worth of payout, and then 30 years later you're making $100 an hour, and you're going to get paid out on those, you know, that time, and it's going to be so much more. So I think you should get paid out at whatever the, you know, basically accrue the dollar, not the amount.
I'm happy to raise it. I don't know if that legally can happen, but that's why they have really good people on that board.
Lawyers, but yeah,
Look,
I mean,
to look into that.
to me, it just seems fair, but that's just, you know. I mean, I can accrue 5 vacation days and I have to use it in the first quarter, and otherwise I lose it. That's how the private world. And then
Okay.
the other part was, if we do change something, I think before the personnel board makes any decision, I'd like to see the selectmen buy into it in terms of trying to get that same effect for the union contracts and the personnel, the regular contracts. I think, you know, I think we make a decision, we should try to make it. I mean, some of the contracts like the schools might be difficult, but we should try as best we can to make it fair across all of our SAP, our contracts, individual contracts, and our union contracts.
Really fair point, Andrew. I can't speak to the school contract but I remember I did study the town union contracts when I was doing the initial analysis. Those have very minimal carryover provisions. So they're actually more in line with, I guess, what I was thinking I was going to find. So, but I think it's a valid point, right? You know, there should be consensus, you know, to try to synergize as much as possible, because that would also bring it in line with department head contracts, right, which the board is responsible for. The other thing I'll just say to that is, you know, if you read the opinion, for if an employee is watching this, right? Like, I think the important thing is if there ever is a change, right? Which town meeting will make that decision eventually based on whatever personnel board brings forward. There's a law. It's very clear. You have to give the employee time to use what they have, what the benefits they have accrued. So, the intent here is really to stop it from getting further out of control, not to take something away that someone has rightfully earned, even if you don't believe they rightfully earned it.
And so you don't make it retroactive. But Jason, what you just said is very important. So this is what I think. I think that it may just be the town side that has this. I don't think the schools have it either because there's no big payouts on the school side that I can think of. All the big payouts I remember have, well, okay, so I was thinking Chief Morrow, but he's not part of the union, right, Jason?
He was for 30 some odd years before he became chief. So
okay, but as chief, he wasn't. So he got a large payout when he retired. So the large payouts I can think of were on the town employee side. So I bet if I had to bet, I bet it's more likely than not that you don't have this on the school side either, which would make it, I would think, easier to get done on the town side. So we really are consistent all the way through. So that may help.
Yeah, I would just like to see overall consensus or consistency with COLA adjustments and things like that all over the variety of places.
That would be hard given the structure of the contracts, the steps and lanes, okay, so I will post a meeting on June 9th, just in case we end up with a quorum there. Although it'd be really hard given how small our committee is right now, but I will still post it just in case, I'll be optimistic. Judy. So, which I'm gonna explain in a second. Okay, so I will post a meeting on June 9th for whatever the time is for personnel in case we all show up. Okay, all right, is that all you want to say tonight, Jason?
It is. I just really giving notice to everyone that they're marching forward and have invited us to be party to the discussions.
Does it have to be done as one stream?
I can ask the question, I guess. Can you just broaden that? Like, is there something you're looking to prioritize, Tim?
Yeah, I just maybe I'm wrong, but my gut tells me that there'll be a lot more consensus around accrued sick time.
As far as reducing that, Tim?
Eliminating the accrual of it, incentivizing people to stay home when they're sick, as opposed to trying to generate more cash.
I think the state I'm pretty sure I got my sick time paid out when I retired. So this may be interesting to see what you find out about it, but I got it. Oh.
Yeah, it's definitely a public sector thing, not a private sector thing.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I think a lot of people look at vacation time as an earned asset. It's yours. And so I think there's going to be a lot of back and forth about accrued vacation. Sick time it's not yours. I mean, if you get sick, you use it. If you don't get sick, it's not yours.
It was.
So I agree there is a distinction in the two, but you still want to encourage people to take a vacation because you need it. Banks make you, right? For a variety of reasons, but you make it. You've got now Silicon Valley saying, oh, you can take whatever you want to, just get your job done. And of course, then no one takes vacation because they can't get the job done. So we'll see where this all ends up, but I do think it's a really good discussion to have, come to a conclusion on. Okay, next on my list are a couple things that have happened recently. So as you may know from keeping track of the blog or wherever, the South Union article will be indefinitely postponed. And then the bid that was submitted is being revoked. So they are going to retract that bid if they haven't already. So we have no bid. So there's really nothing to discuss. So they're going to just indefinitely postpone it, and then we see where we go from there. So it kind of gives us a chance to maybe restart the process and rethink how that process should occur.
Hey, Kathy, they didn't post any reason, right, for the withdrawal.
This happened last night. So Jason is the one that told me. So Jason, any color you can add to what I said?
No, there was a letter the board received, and
okay.
Before the meeting, I think it actually was posted in the article today. I think someone did a public records request for it. It was, I think, one sentence saying that they withdraw their bid.
So, to the point. So there's that. I still think that, not to speak for capital planning, we got two members here, but if I had to guess, capital planning, and I think probably us and probably Board of Selectmen still believe that the building is not one that we should keep. We don't have enough use for it. So I still think that that conclusion is probably still the same conclusion. Now we just got to figure out what to do. So, and we got a special town meeting that we may be able to go further with it. So we will see. So that one's off. So I'm assuming that once it's definitely postponed, it will not engender a whole lot of discussion on Saturday. Pilot payments. As everybody knows, at the, help me if I do this wrong, so 2020, I believe it's 19 was the town meeting where the request from the town to the Board of Selectmen to try to pursue agreement with the private schools as far as pilot payments took place. Then, so it's been 2 years, and Marty Healy was appointed as the person to lead that charge. He did speak to it briefly at last year's truncated town meeting. He has recently, I guess, in his mind, completed his discussion with both Bay School and St. Mark's. St. Mark's has agreed to, for fiscal year 22, to basically fund or divide for us two things that were on our capital list for fiscal year 22. They've agreed to buy the defibrillators, which was $18,200. They're going to pay $18,000 for that. Then they have agreed to fund half of the fire chief's turnout gear amount of $40,000. And then Fay School is going to fund the other half of that. So the whole 40 is going to get paid for between the two schools, and the defibrillators are going to get bought. In addition to that, St. Mark's is agreed to fund half of the turnout gear annual amount for the next 3 years. So starting fiscal year 22, they're going to do the same thing. We'll give 20 for 23 and fiscal year 24. Now, this is clearly in addition to what the payment is that they would have made anyway. And that payment is getting pretty close to $50,000. So all in, if you add the cost of these two items, which is 20 and 18, so that's 38, to what they are paying now anyway, you're getting pretty close to $85,000, $87,000. So it's somewhere between 85 and 87, I think you add it up. So that was clear that this was not as a substitute for what they would have done otherwise without the conversation with Mr. Healy. This is an addition. Now, Fay School, it's my understanding, did not agree to the 3-year plan for the other half of the turnout gear. They agreed to 1 year. And that's on top of the $10,000 that they're paying each year for 10 years for their contribution to the public safety building. So I think, Jason, they're in the second or third year of that. I forget which year it is. So they've got a few more years to go on that. So that has been reflected in the Excel workbook that I sent you guys this afternoon, which is the final one that we will have before town meeting. So the year-over-year projected tax increase, and I will continue to emphasize projected because there are things that are going to change it after town meeting. It's now 3.19% to an average resident every year. Last year, we went to town meeting, and by the time we left town meeting with Al Hamilton's amendment to utilities budget, it was 0.77. And then with the other things that happened later, it increased to 1.33. So between the 2 years, it's about 2.4 on the average, assuming the changes that are going to be made at town meeting aren't going to be real. Okay, so let that sink in for a minute. So 3.19. So that's what is in our advisory report. That's what will be told. That's what Beth Milo will publish in my Southborough, etc. Okay. So I just think you should average the 2 years because we postponed so much to this year that you really have to put the two together to really get a more accurate reflection of where we stand for the 2 years, 2 pandemic years. Okay. All right. Any further discussion of anything I just said? I don't know what the board of selectmen is going to say at town meeting as far as a pilot. I think, like, I'm sure someone is going to ask about it. They did last year, and I'm sure they'll do it again. So it'll be up to either Marty or Lisa to deal with that piece of it. My guess is Lisa. So Lisa Brascio is now chair. She took over from Marty. My guess is Lisa will probably ask Marty to speak to it, but I don't know that for a fact. If I were her, I would. All right. Okay. The advisory report. I promise you it's done, except for I got to tweak one section. So Tim, I went back and looked at what you wrote last year in the risk assessment section, and it's so well written. I need to incorporate a couple things you said there, and what I did, mine was not as well written as yours. So I got to do that. I promise you before I go to bed tonight, it will be on your email. So when I'm asking as a favor, if you guys could try to look at it tomorrow before 12, then directly to me any comments you have on. Don't worry about language and spelling stuff. That will be taken care of with Judy. So I'm not worried about that piece of it. I think it's in pretty good shape as far as that anyway. But if you could by 12, take a look at it, because I really want to try to get it to Beth Milo to publish on my South Brook. She's going to on Friday. And then I got to get all the copies made for Saturday at 9 o'clock. And I fly back Friday afternoon. So I'm sorry it's so late. I have kind of labored over a couple sections, and so I think that they're almost done. So I will have it to you when I go to bed tonight. It's on your email. So does that sound like a tenable plan?
Does to me.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
All right. So I'm very sad about the next one. So Judy, my good friend Judy, has been on advisory with me for a long, long time, sent me an email today and said she is going to resign from advisory after the town meeting. So I haven't had a chance to talk to her, but I wanted everybody to know, because we won't see her again if that's what she's going to do. So we will see, but that's what her intention is. Judy's a new grandmother, and I bet that's got something to do with it.
Do we have a chance to change your mind, Judy?
Maybe. I've thought about it because Kathy sort of put the screwdriver in and turned it a little bit. So it's getting to be time, but I don't know.
There's a time for everything, right? You know, John Butler resigned because he wanted to spend more time with his grandchildren. He thought things were in good shape. So anyway, I get it, but I wish he'd stay on at least another year.
Or Judy.
I probably will.
That would be great. Or at least till our bylaw change goes in.
Oh, that's so, Judy. There is a practical reason we're asking you to. We do want you to stay, sincerely, but we're going to have a quorum problem if you don't.
I know it. Well, that's why I let you know. Yeah.
Okay, so the other part I haven't said either is John Rooney does not intend to be up either. His term is up June 30, so he does not intend, as of now, to re-up. So anybody that wants to talk to him directly, feel free to do it. He's on a lovely vacation right now, so maybe you wait till he gets back. He's had a great time. He's relaxed, and we kind of lobby him too. But anyway, so we definitely will have a quorum problem if you both go. We're going to be down to 4, and until this bylaw passes, our quorum's still 5. And the bylaw could take 90 days, Jim Hagerty said, to be effective after July 1st. So, not to put too much pressure in there.
Okay.
Okay. So there's that. So actually, I feel better now. I don't know what you said. Okay. There is. I'll talk to Mark Purple tomorrow. Has anybody read Article 32 in the warrant? I thought I read it, but I guess I didn't until tonight.
Which one is that, Kathy?
Yeah, which one
that's
is it?
the advisory bylaw change. He was supposed to put in it. It doesn't reflect going from 9 to 7 in the actual first part of it. Now, in the explanation, it does. So I don't know if I made a mistake when I sent it to him, or he left it out, but it's very confusing. So we're going to have to be very clear on Saturday about what's going on here. I talked about the report, but not everybody's going to read the report. So yeah, it starts off with, so he's shown the changes in Article 32 that we want well, it's a black line, it's not a red line, but that one's not red line. Yet in the explanation, he does say reduces. So I think it's just an error that they didn't mark through the 9 and put 7.
Are we going to have to amend this?
I don't know the answer. I literally saw this like 2 hours ago, Tim. I didn't have a chance to get hold of anybody,
Okay.
so I went, oh my gosh. So I will call Mark first thing in the morning, talk to him, and we'll come up with a plan. So we very well may have to amend that article to do the 9 to 7, which we clearly know we need to, right? So I've tried to make a good case for it in the advisory written report. But for those that read that, they'll see it, which is another reason that I want Beth to get this thing posted in myself. Some people on board before then. So that's all I know, but it definitely is not like that. Okay, then I want to make sure of this too. Jim Haggerty still has a problem with this quorum recusal concept that we discussed quite a bit. So I want to see if you guys agree with the following statement. Do we now agree that recusal under mass law means that you leave the room, whether it's virtual, whether it's physical, you leave. So clearly you aren't part of the quorum anymore when you are recused.
Yeah, but I don't think you necessarily have to leave the room. You have to leave the table. You could go
Okay.
into the audience like a public member.
Okay, so you leave that table, you go away, right? If you're in a Zoom, you go get in the audience too. You're an attendee instead of a panelist, right? If you're in a physical room, you go sit with everybody else, right? So you're not part of the quorum, right? So you still need to have a quorum after that person is recused.
Makes sense.
Okay, and that's what we agreed to. And I
Well,
just
what's Jim saying?
Jim thinks we don't understand the word recuse. And I said, well, we looked at state law. And I'm not going to, I don't have it in front of me, but we were fairly convinced we were right as far as what the word recuse means under mass law.
Is Jim saying that we don't have to leave the room or the conversation?
He believes that the person who is recused can still count as a part of the meeting quorum.
Oh, I see. He can't vote, but is still part of the quorum.
Yeah. And of course, again, when we've got when we've got these vacancies, it's really important that we understand this. So
I don't like that idea.
I mean, I've seen that in other states, and I think I sent that to you, Kathy, before.
California, but
It seemed like
we'll
Mr.
talk again.
Butler said in Massachusetts, it's not true. So maybe we can get a final ruling from the AG's office.
Yeah, because I think we
although,
got to be prepared to say this on Saturday. Let's see, Tim Litt. Besides mass law, you need to look at the AG's guidance and state ethics. Okay, thank you.
But we're taking a more conservative view. So why is
this
this a
is
problem?
very conservative, very conservative. But I don't want us to stumble on Saturday and not speak very clearly about what we're trying to do here. Jim's not going to say anything. He thinks he says fine because I've said I'm going to say you're fine. But I really want to make sure that we don't end up with an issue on Saturday where we don't understand our own bylaw as far as what it really means. Mr. Butler will not be there Saturday either, so he's not going to be there too.
That's shocking.
Yeah. Well, he's got vacation. He had a long plan before the meeting date was announced. So anyway, I will get to the bottom of this tomorrow too, one way or another, and we'll talk about this at 9 o'clock on Saturday to make sure we're all on the same page. So we look like the well-oiled machine that we are. Okay. All right. Last thing is there are 2 articles that I believe advisory should be the group that speaks to them, and I think they need to be spoken to. One of them is this one. I think we should speak to this article and explain to the audience why we these amendments. The vice chair is easy. I think 9 to 7 is pretty cut and dry. And then the one we need to explain 32, which and as 33 is the next one, which is the new capital improvement and planning committee. How they go together. So. And then the meals tax one. So I think those are the 2 that we should speak to. We're the ones that promoted the meals tax. We've got the numbers. I just think we could probably do a a little bit more thorough explanation than anyone else. So what I'm asking is there anyone here that would like to take on either one of those at town meeting?
I think obviously I'm happy to take on the capital planning item if it comes up. Someone asks questions on it.
Well, I still think we need to actually get up there, Jason, and proactively talk about it, so people understand.
I guess I'm not clear on how the moderator's doing that.
I don't know either, but I'm going to talk to him tomorrow,
Okay.
and just say that, and see what he says. I mean, if he says he don't want to do it, then that's his call, right? It's his meeting. But I do think that we need to explain that to the town, so that we kind of control what gets said and not have someone get up from the audience and say something that's not true, or conclude something that's not true. So I think we need to take control of that one as far as what our intention is, which is pure. This is why we're doing it, so that we kind of head off, I hope, any issues with that one. So that's one. Okay, so Jason, whoever does it should do the whole thing, not just the capital piece of it. Are you going to speak? Do you know if you're going to speak to the 33?
I wasn't planning on it. I haven't seen his consent list. I mean, 33.
Nor has anyone else, Jason.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying is 33 has at least a chance of being a consent agenda, right? So it didn't come up in the pre-town meeting that I participated in from a capital perspective, that there was going to be any sort of presentation. I'm happy to speak to it. I agree with you. Your strategy of get the facts out there before the fiction kind of dilutes the facts. So I guess maybe, but you're basically saying someone needs to explain advisory and capital together is what you're proposing. If
I
one
think
of
so,
them is
because
not
they go
consent.
together. The reason we're doing the capital piece is because of 33. So I think you kind of need to talk about both together. I did that in my
I'm
report.
happy to do it, but I also am fine with you or Andrew. I think one of the three of us are clearly well versed in both and can speak to both.
2 years ago, we had someone that was proposing making all kinds of changes, a citizen petition to make all kinds of changes to advisory. And so I'm just trying to control what happens here so it doesn't get out of hand as far as, I don't want anybody to get up and start saying, oh, we want to have elected advisory or this or that. And that's not what the purpose of this is. I'm just trying to keep it, narrowly focused to what's here and try to control the dialogue in an appropriate way. Okay, so there's one. The second one is the mills tax. Anybody want to raise their hand on explaining why we are strongly in support of the mills tax as we were last year?
Didn't you go to all the restaurants?
I did.
I mean, Kathy, I think you explain it the best if you want to do it.
And I'm happy to do it, and I can do it fine. I want you guys to be recognized for all you've done. I don't want to be up there dominating. I want people to see you guys too. So I'm hoping that at least 2 people do this. So I can do mills tax, and then why not Jason, you or Andrew do 32, okay, and 33. You're both on both committees.
Okay. Let us know what you learned from the moderator.
Yeah. So I'm going to talk to him tomorrow. So I'll let you know what he says. That's another reason.
Jason, I'm happy for you to take it. You authored, at least the capital one from scratch. So you're more. Feel free to take that one.
Okay. Let me know if you change your mind.
I don't think
all right. And then I'll clear it with Board of Selectmen too, make sure they're okay with that. As far as those two go. I am going to, Marnie Houlihan has asked me to preview her presentation tomorrow. So I'm going to do that real quick. So she's going to do 5 minutes, and then the professor gets up there, and then she comes back to conclude, and it's supposed to be brief and it's supposed to talk in English. I said, please use light bulbs and fixtures and not lumens and all the other words that you've been using so everybody understands. So hopefully that one will go not too crazy long. So as long as it doesn't rain, I think there's a reasonable chance we'll get done. So what would be the issues? Mills tax could generate some discussion. The advisory bylaw could entertain a little bit of discussion. illumination bylaw could do a lot. The church CPC article, there's been a lot of comments on that on the blog, so that's probably going to take a lot. It's my understanding that there are about 85 members of the church that are voters, and so it's my understanding that they're going to try to get all of them there. So there could be a pretty big crowd from the church there. So there's that one.
Hey, question about that, Kathy.
Yeah.
If that's okay, if I'm allowed to talk on it.
Of course.
Obviously, it's not an opinion either way. I've looked at the blog as well, and you probably noticed I posted something.
I haven't read. I've read some of them, Tim. I haven't read yours. I haven't done. I saw today it was like 30 something. So
yeah. So I posted something what I think is neutral and had nothing to do with my own opinion on this matter, and I don't intend to share it. But what's starting to concern me from an advisory perspective is the fact that there are still people who are speaking out against the state Supreme Court's ruling, which is inappropriate. And this is why, because the state obviously recognizes the legality of this project. Whether or not we should do it or not, it's an entirely different subject, but the state recognizes that this is a legal project. It's a historic structure. It's a legal target for these funds, whether or not we should do it. If people stand up and say, despite that, I don't want to do it because it's religious, because it's Christian, or because it's XYZ, the town is now opened up for a discrimination lawsuit. And so I think, I'm not saying St. Mark's is going to do anything, but I do think that this is shaky ground to be standing on. If the state says this is a legitimate target for funds and people stand up and say, I'm not going to give them money solely on the basis of religion, then that becomes a real problem.
So Tim, though, I don't know how we stop that. You know, you don't know what people are going to say at town meeting.
I think we need to have a conversation, or I think Paul needs to have a conversation with town council, get an opinion on how to run how to direct the conversation.
All right, so I can add that to my list to talk to him about in the morning. So let me ask you guys this: if someone turns to us, or someone gets up at the microphone and says, "Advisory, I see that you guys did not support this. Can you explain why?" Obviously, Andrew Pfaff and Tim Martell and Kathy Cook will not be doing an explanation. It will be Jason or Judy that will have to do it. So you two, when you decide between the two of you, who's going to answer. And I believe that if you take a look at what we said before, that the reason that it was not supported here is because it's simply not a town parcel, which is different from what Tim is saying. That I believe, Jason, your reason we're not supporting is because it's not a town parcel, period. Nothing to do with religion or anything else, but you think CPC funds should be spent on town property and not any other property.
Well, I mean, people will come back to you about the Burnett House, right? I think the easiest answer is we don't believe this is the highest use of limited CPA money. And I think, Andrew, that's something you said like a year ago.
Yeah, and I agree. I think that people have talked to me about it since and said, look at that. How can you say that we shouldn't protect that? And I basically changed my mind, and I think we probably should. And so if it were to come to a vote again, I would support it. So I am not going to talk at town meeting about this. But if we were to do it over, having seen the publicity that's come out about it, I think it's something that should be supported by us.
So Judy, when the vote takes place, obviously AP, Tim Martell, and Kathy Cook are probably going to sit there. Although I'm not sure we have to. I think you could actually go out in the audience and vote if you wanted to, but I'm not going to, just to be totally.
You mean you're not going to speak? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying that you can vote for it, when they actually raise their hands, when the motion's on and saying you can vote for it. Advisory still, I think, is not supporting with the three people. So forget AD for a moment. The vote, I think, would still be 1-2, Judy, if you supported it. Mr. Rooney did not, if I remember. So it'd still be 1-2. So advisory as a whole still doesn't support it, but you certainly,
Okay.
when time comes to vote, can raise your hand that you support it.
Yeah, and I think my other part is less, religious things, to your point, Tim, but non tax exempt. It's kind of using tax dollars for an entity that doesn't pay any taxes or pilot or anything back to the town. That's kind of one of my thoughts. Whether it's a religious organization or any nonprofit, it's just.
Yeah, and I mean, Kathy, I'm happy to speak. I guess, given that John won't be there, right, I'm happy to speak to at least the discussion. And obviously my vote was along the lines of, there's obviously a lot of projects this year, right, including the building that's literally a stone's throw away from it, that, we all as community members benefit from, versus, a subsection of the community, was kind of my general view all along. And it just the highest and best use. I think whoever said that, I think is the right, that's kind of where my philosophical belief is, at least at this point.
So I think if you express that, Jason, as the majority opinion, that's good enough. And maybe even if you think appropriate to say it wasn't a unanimous vote.
But it will appear as a unanimous vote, at least in what they're looking at, unless we revote now.
Well, so we didn't, it's not. Judy, I just want to make sure you have a chance to reflect this.
What?
So we should revote this. Okay, so we say Mark.
We can't really hear you, Kathy.
Yeah, I didn't hear that.
Okay, so advisory is on record in the warrant of not supporting this, but
Right.
the vote itself doesn't show. So Judy, you voted against it when we voted, correct?
Yes, but as I said, I had a change of heart when several people said, this is part of the town history, and the church put out the publicity about it. I thought, all right, I would vote to support it now. So.
All right, so I think, in fairness to Judy, we should revote this so that Jason, who would speak if he's asked to speak, can basically say, this is how we voted, and reflect the fact that it wasn't unanimous if Judy's about to vote.
It's gonna be a 1-1 vote though now.
I understand. But what else can we do? So
I think we voted it, in fairness to John when he was here. I think we voted it and we voted it.
So,
No.
how about I do this? We did vote it. It was 0-4-3, correct?
yes.
So if advisory is questioned, I will say that one member has since joined the Board of Selectmen, right? And he's free to speak up to his opinion. I believe they voted on this last night. We've had one member change to be a positive, but here's the view of the negative, which would be Mr. Rooney and myself.
How's that, Judy? That
Fine.
gets your vote in there. That gets your vote in there by just, I think that's a great idea, Jason. And then when it's time to actually vote, you vote for it.
Yeah, good.
All right. Everybody's okay with that? Good
Yeah.
solution? Okay. Well, why do I look so weird? I guess it's late. Okay. All right, so that's all I've got as far as town meeting matters, I think. I will talk to Palomino tomorrow morning.
Kathy, will you check on the warrant? Because it definitely still says 9.
Yeah, no, it does. I kept looking at that. Am I missing the line through there? And then I went, oh no. And then if you look at the explanation, it is in there. So, it is what it is. So we probably, Tim, will have to amend our own warrant article and explain that it's a mistake. It should say 7. So. Okay, you ready? Okay, so I posted a meeting for 9 o'clock on Saturday. So if everybody can get there an hour early, that would be helpful. We are going to have tables in front of us. I asked for those. Keep their stuff on it. Keep reaching down to the grass and stuff. We have to write. So anyway, let's just hope that Mother Nature cooperates and we get it done. It was such a relief when it's over with. Okay, and then our next meeting is June 9th at 7:30. Don't forget, we got the next one at 7:30 also. Okay. All right. Anything else from anybody?
Kathy, in listening to the Board of Selectmen, they might start meeting in person. So I just was wondering if you have any thoughts in terms of following their lead at some point in time.
Well, I thought about asking you guys, so what do you think? To me, there's pros and cons of each. So what do you think, Andrew? If you had your preferences or your druthers, would you rather meet in person or continue the Zooms?
A split of it, a hybrid maybe every once in a while, meet in person, sometimes on Zoom, but it'd be good to see everybody's face. I haven't seen you
I
guys in
agree.
such a long time, but
I agree. I agree.
I hate the Zoom. I can't stand the Zoom. I would meet in person every time.
Okay, all right, so we got your vote. Jason, what do you think?
It's all a matter of what week we're talking about. Zoom's obviously a lot more convenient,
I
depending.
know, so I figured you might say that. I could see why you'd say that. Tim?
Yeah, Zoom's so much easier for me with
Oh,
the
well.
kids and the sports and
Because it really does, you don't have to, the drive time goes away, Andrew?
I'm not worried about the drive time. It's the kids and
I know,
the sports and the. No, but I'd be willing to meet in person if I'm physically in Southborough, et cetera.
So how about we at least have if we're allowed to do it, let's have at least one meeting in the near future where we're all together so we can actually say hello. And then we'll continue to do the Zooms for a while as long as they let us do it.
So here's a question.
Yeah.
If we meet in person, are we still going to turn the Zoom on? What about our audience?
well, I think they were going to try to make like a couple rooms hybrid.
Yeah.
They had a kind of all of us would be on a camera, and then the room would be in Zoom, kind of a thing.
I'd let someone else test it before us.
Yeah.
But-
I want the Board of Selectmen to try this out, but
I think the issue is that when the governor rescinds the state of emergency in the middle of June, there goes the statement that Kathy reads at the beginning of every meeting. That order will then go away. So unless the legislature acts and allows us to meet remotely, we may not have a choice. But I know there's a lot of momentum given the transparency that this process has led to continue it. But obviously that's in our legislators' hands.
Because I'm sure we're not the only ones that have the opinions we expressed tonight. I'm sure that if you ask all committees, you're going to find some that would like it to keep going, and some that, like Judy, who would not, and some who are ambivalent, kind of like it, but pros and cons. I can say, have I seen you guys in person in the last 30 months? I don't think so. I saw Andrew D recently, and it was really nice to see him. Saw Chelsea. It was nice to see her. So it is nice to see people in person again.
Well, Saturday's the day.
Yep, it is, isn't it? Okay. All right.
Are masks,
anything-
I'm sorry, are masks required? It's outdoors. I don't remember.
no, I know. I think last year they had us wear them in, but we could take them off at our seats. But I don't know what the rule is for this year.
And that was like when mass just had started.
Yeah.
My guess is they'll publish some guidance, I would hope. Because it's
Tim
obviously
Litz got his hand up, so I bet he has the answer. So Tim, I'm going to bring you in only for that answer. So if that's what you want to come in for, I guess he's coming in.
I just moved him in, yeah. He had his hand up before we started on that, though, so full disclosure.
Okay. So
So as far as that particular question goes, the last time I looked at the website, Jim was saying masks coming in, but you don't have to keep them on when you sit down. But that was before the governor announced the 29th bit. So who knows what'll happen there. Jason is correct in terms of the state of Zoom. It's enabled by the governor's order, and the governor's orders lift on the 15th. And the legislature is thinking about, which parts of the governor's orders they will keep in place and which ones they won't.
okay.
And finally, the reason I did have my hand up was this, in terms of managing your capital planning and advisory changes at town meeting. The way to retain control over that is to make a motion to combine the two articles for purposes of discussion. That motion is in order, and that will allow you to talk to why the two are interrelated and why you want them both to pass. And then there will be separate votes on each one.
Okay, that's
So
helpful.
that's the mechanics of how you do what I think you want to do.
All right, that's helpful.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. I thought it was really early, but I'm an hour earlier than you guys, so it's not quite as early as I thought. Okay, so that's all I've got. Anything from anybody else before we see you on Saturday? Okay. All right, Judy,
Yeah.
make a motion.
Oh, I move we adjourn. I thought you were say something really
Second.
nice. Yeah.
Second.
Second.
Okay, so I believe Jason, or maybe Tim won that one. So Claire, I think Tim won that one
Yeah.
by half a second over AP. Okay, so roll call vote. Judy,
Bud's eye.
Cook is aye. Tim,
Aye.
Jason,
Aye.
AP.
Aye.
5-0. So see you guys Saturday, and I will keep you posted as far as conversation with Palomino.
Okay.
Great.
Good night.
And I
Thank you.
will have
Night
the
all.
advisory report. I will have the report to you tonight. I promise. Maybe late, but you will come.
Good.
Wake up.